There is a lot of confusion out there about what tests to do when you're starting off trying to figure out if you are sick from mold. The reason is there are a lot of different types of tests, and while every single test tests for some element of mold, there are weaknesses to every test, and knowing which one to use depends on understanding what each test purpose is for and what its strengths it has, where its strengths lie. That's why in today's episode, I'm duking it out between two commonly discussed mold tests for your body, the organic acids test, or OAT, and the Mycotox test. In today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down how the OAT and Mycotox differ, which test I recommend you first use when you're starting on your mold journey, what each test is best at testing for and when to use it, my recommendation on where to start to save you the most money and get you the most accurate answers the fastest. Plus, I'm going to be giving you tips and literally showing you how to analyze both tests so you can never miss a key marker. This is going to save you literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars by helping you avoid false negatives where people say you don't really need to address blank, blank, or blank, and know what practitioners don't know what they're talking about, and honestly avoid protocols you don't even need to be doing. Plus, lead you towards the one you do need to be doing. So if you're ready to simplify your mold healing journey and clarify the exact next steps you need to take without wasting any of your precious time or money, then this episode is for you. If you want more mold answers after listening to this episode, go to betterbellytherapies.com/mold and grab our free document where we're putting all the mold episodes we've had on this podcast, including our mold series 1, miscellaneous episodes we've released, and this series as we update it every single week, mold series 2. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your podcast player so you get updated every single time there's a new episode released, because we're having new episodes on mold every week from here until through September. Are you guys ready? Let's get going. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. All right, guys. So I want to just dive in with this and first talk about how the OAT and the Mycotox are similar, and I think why people get confused with them. And I will say there are literally practitioners out there who teach more or less the opposite of what I'm teaching, not because they're saying the tests do different things, but they like to use them in different ways. And I simply am teaching what I have found has been the most helpful for my clients, and I'm also trying to weave in science and scientific background to how the tests operate as the foundation for the decisions that I've made and why our clients and why the process that I recommend is the process. But let's first talk about how they're similar. Both the Mycotox and the organic acids test are urine-based tests that you're typically going to do at home. And what they're doing is they're testing inside of your urine for different types of markers related to mold. How they differ is the organic acids test tests for what we call metabolites of mold spore breakdown. So spores that your body has been exposed to, breaking the spores down. Spores is like the leaf of the plant, the actual plant itself of the mold plant, and then it's showing up in your urine. If we see elevations or positive signs of mold on an organic acids test, it typically actually means you are colonized with mold, meaning you are the moldy piece of bread. It's not just you breathed in mold when you went and got your nails done or visited your grandpa's farm. It is you've been in mold long enough that the mold is in your lungs, in your sinuses. It's exposing you on a chronic level. And It doesn't deny that you might be literally breathing it in somewhere, your home, workplace, but it at least means that you yourself have been very sick with it for a long time. You've been exposed for a while. I really like this test as a first test, and it is the first test I recommend people to start with because it is so blatantly, you are colonized. You need to do something about this. There can be other tests that look at the wrong thing, like mold allergy, which I covered in the previous episode. And then what Mycotox panels test for is super different. So Mycotox panels are looking at the toxin that mold produces, which is called mycotoxins as a broad category. There's lots of types of mycotoxins, just like there's lots of types of fruit, but they're all fruit. So mycotoxins are toxins. And when a mycotox panel looks at your urine, it says, are there mycotoxins in this urine? Now, what it doesn't tell us is the mycotoxins we're seeing in your urine, are they from 10 years ago that your body's finally getting rid of just now? Was it from yesterday at the salon, or was it from your house over the last week? We don't know any of that information. And so I really don't like using mycotox panels until you have eliminated a bunch of variables. Some of the variables are, we've tested your home with an URMI, which I covered in the last week's episode, and we either know that the home is low mold, or we found that it was not low mold and you went through the process to now be living in a low mold environment. We want to eliminate the idea that you are getting exposed to mold in your home. When you successfully do that, if you're in a low mold environment in your home, you will see a reduction in symptoms. I've never seen this not happen. There's a reduction in symptoms, not usually elimination fully, but a reduction in severity and intensity. If you're still getting exposed outside the home, however, there's going to be an elongation. So I've had clients where their exposure was in religious worship places, in pools, indoor pools where their children were getting swim lessons. I've had it be in school systems. There's a lot of places we don't want it to be, but if it is at high enough levels and there's enough of a frequency of exposure, once a week is enough to keep the symptoms elevated all week, especially if you are already a mold sick individual. And so even if nobody else in your family is getting sick, or nobody else is getting as sick as severely, a great test once your home is cleared is you can just avoid several places you go regularly. And if your symptoms improve, one of those places, like a workplace, which I also didn't mention, but is also another one, might be an issue. What you do with like workplaces or places that are not your home, there's a variety of tactics, but the place you control the most, the place you have complete authority over, is your home. And so we want to start with making sure you're in a low mold environment in your home. The other thing you want to do that I typically like to do before doing a Mycotox panel is starting to work on the internal environment of the body. As I previously mentioned with the oat, it actually shows mold colonization, meaning you're the moldy piece of bread, meaning you can actually produce your own mycotoxins in your body. Kind of gross, but true. And so as you're producing those mycotoxins, that would show up on a Mycotox panel. We don't know if it's internally produced. We don't know if it's your home. So I usually like to wait and hold off on doing any Mycotox tests until symptoms are low. You have a low mold URMI test. We have reason to believe you're probably not being exposed to other external environment mold sources like workplace, church, etc. And we've started doing internal protocols to help clear up the mold in the rest of your body. And so if you have once you've done all those things, then the value of a Mycotox panel now comes that we're assuming you're getting no external exposure. Once that factor is controlled for of no or very minimal external exposure, then when you do a Mycotox panel, what it actually shows is the mycotoxins coming out of your body that are still in you. And so you can start to do precision protocols for different types of mycotoxin groups. You can do different types of strategies, supplementations, therapies that are more powerful with certain types of mycotox groups like alpha toxin or trichothecenes. There's different groups that you can do different strategies. So that's a precision strategy much further down the road to help you pull out really toxic substances from your body. But your body will already be getting rid of those substances as you heal naturally from mold, are in a healthier environment, are supporting your gut with other types of protocols, supporting your detoxification systems, etc. So the Mycotox panel for our program and our purposes and the way I've used it is honestly very far down the line, but it is really helpful. It's very eye-opening. However, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, well, I already have a Mycotox panel. Is it completely useless? It's not. And so I want to actually go through both the organic acids test and the Mycotox panel with you right now on screen. If you're watching a video of this podcast episode. If you're not, you can go watch it on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. We're also aiming to get it onto our website soon. If you want to watch it on the betterbellytherapies.com website, you just go to betterbellytherapies.com/ just the episode number. And this one's 327 to see if it's there yet. But if it's not, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and the video will be there and you're gonna see me show you some labs. So let me pull them up here. And we're going to talk about how to analyze them and what markers to be looking for. This is a little bit of the quick and dirty. It's not like the most up level of helping you become a practitioner and be able to analyze the entire lab yourself, but it will give you enough information to know how to not avoid false or poorly analyzed labs, which unfortunately happens a lot. Like I literally, if you have one of these labs or both, pull them up and compare what I'm saying and what I'm explaining to explanations you've been given from previous practitioners. You might actually find that there's some data here that they overlooked, and it could be unlock the door to healing with information you already have. You don't have to go buy another protocol or another lab. You might already have this. If you don't have one of these, you can just listen in, take it in, go get one and bring it back. If you're going to get one and you don't have one, get the OAT. That's my tip. If you want to get an organic acids test, you can get one inside of our program, the Better Belly Blueprint, where we get you the lab for near wholesale pricing. It gets mailed to your home. Just go to Module 2. You can order it right away as soon as you join. And not only do you get the lab, but not only do you get access to ordering lab, but you also get a full video on how to analyze the lab itself without missing any single markers, and then also protocols you would need to address what you found on your lab, plus a ton of other labs that are going to be relevant to give you whole body healing from mold, constipation, bloating, IBS, autoimmune conditions, etc. We've done it all. And again, if you want to hear and see any of our client results, just go to betterbellytherapy.com/results. We have a free document there. You just read through and you can get links to all the podcast testimonials that we have, see a bunch of the screenshot of our client wins. It's super awesome. I think it's a 20-page document right now, but we add to it all the time. So it might be longer when you go and see it. All right. So here we have on the screen just a really basic evaluation. This client is a female, age 38, and she does have mold. And when you look at this section, this is the first page of the organic acids test. It's the very first section. You'll see a little area over here that is gray, and it says yeast and fungal. And all of these markers are mold except for arabinose. So arabinose, which is in this page, it's marker 7. It is actually a better marker for candida overgrowth. This client here is not red, but she's borderline, and I would consider that a positive. She's just like right on the other side. She's a 27, and the top, he wants you to be 27 or 29 or lower. So she's basically right there. So I would, to get her the best results, probably recommend her to do a candida protocol on top of all this. But you see the last marker here on number 9, her tricarbolylic is very elevated, very much above the second deviation line. And so she has mold. That's it. You need one marker. I've seen clients with 1 elevated above and it turns red. I've seen clients with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You can be very sick from just 1. That is enough. So that's one client. Here's the next client though. I want to show you guys some examples. This is a great example of a false negative. And I just realized that there's a lot of data. I don't want you guys to get too distracted. Let me see if I can. I'm just going to move this down. So we're zoning in on this upper section here. So this is a female, age 24, And when you look at this section, most of her mold markers are pretty low down. The only mold marker, or the only marker that's kind of elevated, is arabinose. It's at 29, so it's not red, but again, I would consider that a high, and you'd want to make sure Candida is fully dealt with. By the way, I've got a great Candida podcast episode. I was not planning on sharing this, but I can't help but mention it. So I'm going to put the link in the show notes to go and listen to our Candida episode, because most people do Candida wrong and it just regrows again. And if that's you, or if you've heard about that happening, or you just want to do it right the first time, definitely go check out the link in the show notes and listen to the episode. And you're going to learn all the things to avoid to not make mistakes as you do a Candida protocol. But all that being said, this client very much has low mold markers. So we're going to move on to another one of these lower images down here that I moved. And weirdly enough, there we go. It's layering them wrong. Weird. So now we're looking at these ones. And so we have, the first section is mitochondrial markers. The mitochondrial markers we see here, none of them are high. But when we get to ketone and fatty acid oxidation, she has 4 of them that are elevated. This is where your hidden markers of mold colonization lie, in the mitochondrial markers section and the ketone and fatty acid oxidation section. The reason why is because when you are sick from mold inside of your body, it massively messes with your mitochondria. And your mitochondria are the batteries inside of your cells. So you're immediately going to have issues with things like potentially weight gain, maybe more weight loss because of not being able to eat enough food, or your body not processing it super well, brain fog, chronic fatigue, pain. Your body just doesn't recover because the batteries of its cells are gone. It's not even a cortisol problem anymore. It's literally a cellular mitochondrial problem. Her markers are not elevated, but the next section is ketone and fatty acid oxidation. And this is because mold inside of your body modifies and damages your ability to process fats, not digest fats, but to assimilate fats. And so you're going to see an issue with Krebs cycle and energy production. Again, more energy issues. Mold is a huge energy production destroyer here. And so you're going to see elevated markers here. If there are elevated markers, at least one in either section, but especially the more there are. If there's a bunch in one section or there's a bunch in both of the sections, the more markers there are, the more it's just like, wow, there's plenty of signs of hidden mold. Other things that you can look for or that you want to be asking yourself, however, if you have elevations of ketone and fatty acid oxidation, there could be a very simple explanation for this that's not mold. And that would be if you're literally on a low carb diet. So if you're on a keto diet, a carnivore diet, and you're only eating fat and meat, or primarily to a significant level, not eating carbs, you could be in ketosis from a dietary standpoint. But if you are like, oh, I totally eat carbs, I eat fruit, I eat carrots, which are fairly high in carbs, you eat potatoes, you eat things with carbs in it, then you're going to, you should not see these elevated. And huge cause is mold. One thing I realized that's not on here, that's not an OAT, and this will be relevant to some of you. I'm not going to pull it up because I actually didn't prep it. But if you have a GI map, which is a stool sample test, one of the markers on there is very commonly correlated with mold, and it's secretory IgA. This is usually one of the markers on one of the last pages I think it's called the digestion markers, or general just digestion, health and digestion markers, something like that. And when secretory IgA is really elevated or really suppressed, really high or really low, these can be signs of mold. Initially, it will go high because your body is very irritated immune-wise to the presence of mold. But then after enough time, it will be depleted because mold is, at the end of the day, it is an immune suppressor. So your body will initially have a really strong, healthy, good reaction of a high immune response, and then it'll become very low. Most of our clients who come to us have a low secretory IgA. The low secretory IgA, the only other times that could be elevated is just like some type of other chronic infection, but mold is the number one culprit. So you could also look at, if you have a GI map, is your secretory IgA low? Very, very commonly for our clients, it is. And that just is a double whammy when we're looking at hidden markers that might suggest this is hidden toxicity hidden levels of mold toxicity. Something to keep in mind then is why does this happen? And I've mentioned it before, but just want to draw attention that these markers, why can you pee in a cup and there's no mold there in the cup, but you actually are sick from mold? And it's because you can only get into your urine what your body's able to detox. So if your detoxification systems are so clogged, so offline, so poorly functioning, you are not going to get it enough into your urine for you to see it. You might see other markers, but you won't see the mold metabolites directly because you're not even getting out the mold metabolites. That's how bad off you are. So it actually can be quite severe, even if it looks low. You really want to take it to heart. I want to give you another example here. This is from a female, age 50. You can see her first page of her mold protocols. None of them are super elevated. There is this one here that's kind of bumping up, number 4 here. And then she's got candida that is elevated. It's red. And then here's an example where she has one mitochondrial marker that's elevated, number 30 here, 3-methylglutaric acid. And she's got 2 ketone and fatty acid oxidation markers elevated, number 43 and 44. So this is another just combo. And I say this is one of the most common things we see. We probably see more hidden signs of mold than we see blatant signs of mold. If anything, it's probably close to 50-50, which is just a lot of people who could be a practitioner or tells them, or you don't get a practitioner, you just look at it and you're like, well, all the markers are low. I don't even know. We've been getting issues with AI, people submitting their labs to AI, and AI gives the most atrocious lab analysis. So please don't trust it. Please do not submit it to AI. It gives pretty conventional medicine answers. And even then it's still pretty atrocious. So that's the organic acid test. Now moving on. This is a Mycotox panel. So and this is actually an old Mycotox panel because this was an old client of mine from 2021, but it was a perfect example of this. So this client, I just want to make sure it's not too zoomed in. I'm going to do this. This client came to me and she had fibromyalgia. She's actually been on the podcast, but I don't want to identify her that closely with her lab. But she came with fibromyalgia and she had a bunch of other stuff that we dealt with, and it wasn't just mold that was going on in her health that was attributing to fibromyalgia, but mold was one part of it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, she got this Mycotox panel from another practitioner before me. And so when we went and looked at it, I will use any data someone has. If you already have it, you already paid for it, let's use it, even if it's not the one I would recommend first. And so I looked at it and it immediately told me a lot of information. This is what I want you to look at. Not all markers on the Mycotox panel are equal. And there's 2 in particular that are going to be hands down more important, and you want to look for basically a false negative for. Number 1 is mycophenolic acid, sometimes called MPA. Letter M, letter P, letter A. And so right here you can actually see her mycophenolic acid. It is in the green. She does have it. There's a black bar, which means there's some that was found on her urine sample, but it's under the green bar, 37.4. This is a false paradigm. This is actually an inappropriate way to do this. So Dr. Jill Krista, who's a mold expert and has been working with mold for decades, she teaches and really emphasizes that mycophenolic acid only comes and is created when mold is actually like a mold colony. So imagine you could see mold growing on a piece of wood in your home. Gross. That mold colony is actually growing. So like if you measured it, if it's 1 inch in diameter today and a month later it's 2 inches in diameter, it's growing. Many mold colonies are technically dead by the time we get to them, meaning there's no active water source. They're still incredibly toxic. But if it's actively growing, it's still toxic. And it will show up as mycophenolic acid, MPA. So there's no appropriate level of mycophenolic acid for somebody to be having, because it means they're having mold that is actively growing somewhere in their home. There's an active water source, whether it's simply high humidity or a slow leak from a fridge water line or some type of slow leak from the dishwasher. There is an active water source and it is growing and it's showing up as mycophenolic acid in her urine. So that's the number 1 thing. There's no appropriate level. And what's interesting is that a lot of times you'll either have practitioners that either look at this and say, well, it's below the, normal levels, so you're good. The other issue is that sometimes people will only look at the summary page of a test. And I'm going to show you a modern looking Mycotox panel from Mosaic Labs, which they're, by the way, not the only good lab test. I also really like the Mycotox panels from Vibrant Wellness. They also do have really great ones. They actually have more markers on it than Mosaic Labs, but it is more expensive. So like pros and cons, you like get more markers. That's a pro. More expensive. Some people don't like that, but both tests have mycophenolic acid. And if you look in the summary page of modern ones, it's the first page usually, and it'll show you all the ones that were elevated. If you have MPA that's below, like in the green, it showed up somewhat. It's not zero. It's not below detectable levels, but it's not above normal levels for its preference, which is not okay, what we covered here. What's going to happen is that it won't show up on the first page and you have to go hunting for it. So please do look at your whole test and go find your mycophenolic acid and see if anything showed up, because it's actually almost as good as saying you are getting exposed to an actively growing colony. It's almost as good as like a home mold test, though you don't know where it is. You don't know if it's in your workplace, at your home, at your church. You don't know where it is, but often it is the home. So that's number one. The second thing you're going to want to look for that's more interesting than any other marker on here is gliotoxin. So gliotoxin is a toxin that only gets released in the body when the mold colonies is actively colonizing your body. So a mold spore lands in your lung tissue because you're breathing it. And it doesn't just get attacked by your immune system and tossed aside. It actually plants itself. Your immune system is not able to get rid of it, and it starts to proliferate and actually like take ground in your body. That results as mold is doing that, it produces gliotoxin in particular. That's often when someone feels their worst, is as it's taking ground. And so one of the things, if you're seeing any gliotoxin, you can know that you are actively, one of the reasons you might feel as bad as you are is you might be really colonized really fast. This is almost as good as an organic acids test, because organic acids test looks at colonization, and this is also pretty like, okay, you're getting colonized, you have an issue, where almost all the other markers on a Mycotox panel are just saying this could be past exposure, you're detoxing right now, this could be exposure you had today, but you're detoxing it great. We get exposed to mycotoxins all the time. It doesn't mean we're sick from it. So that's why I don't like to start with the Mycotox test. But if you have one, here's like things you can really look at to say, okay, am I actually sick from it? Is this an issue, like a now issue, not just a past issue? Because Mycotox panels can be simply past toxins you're now finally detoxing. So there's that. So this is this is a modern Mycotox panel. And it shows, like on the first page, all these things that say, like, this is what we want to see. Everything's less than DL, below detectable levels. That's a good MPA. That's what we want. Yay. That's a good gliotoxin, citrinin, all of that's good. This is another client, and their summary page showed 2 mycotoxins that were elevated, ochratoxin and citrinin. But if you scroll down to their actual every single marker, and this isn't every single marker, but it's one of the sections, you'll see her mycophenolic acid is 20.5 or 20.15, and it's not showing up on her summary page because it wants it to be 37.4 or higher. And so she is she's getting exposed to an actively growing mold colony. It has some type of water source. So this is it. These are the examples. I hope this was super helpful. You can see it. You can look for it on your own labs if you already have some. Get more data. See if other practitioners have potentially missed something that changes the whole view on things, because I've totally had people say, I've been told I'm not sick from mold, and we go and review labs they already have, or we actually get better ones than what they got, and they sure enough are. And that just changes everything. So to summarize, I recommend the organic acids test when you're first starting off. I recommend the Mycotox panel once your entire mold environment is clean and you've already started working on internal protocols to clear mold out of your body so you are no longer colonized. I cover, if you want to know more details on a little bit more of what you should be looking for, like what is a good internal mold protocol include, I cover that in my 3-step mold treatment plan podcast episode. I had it on the linked directly on the previous episode. I will link that one directly, but you can literally get all of our mold podcast episodes by going to betterbellytherapies.com/mold. It's a free document. It's just a bunch of links to all of our episodes that cover mold, because we have a previous series that we've done. We have this second series that we're going to be doing through August or through September. And we're just going to be adding links to it as we do this new series. I hope this helps, guys. If you have a question on mold, come just DM me on Instagram. Send my team an email. We will add it to our podcast list. I do keep a lot of these questions that we're doing in mold. This mold series 2 are coming from questions we've received from our current clients, from just DMs and emails that I realized, we need to answer these questions and help get more tools into your hands so you guys can heal. And if you want to partner with us to get your lab testing, to learn how to analyze your labs, to get the protocols you need to heal, but from mold, heal your gut, because your gut always gets super damaged from mold, heal everything A to Z, I would love to work with you inside of our program, the Better Belly Blueprint. You can go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint. Join today. There's no wait list. Doors are open, and you can start healing today. I would love to see you inside there. So that's it for today's episode. I'll see you guys next week. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening, you can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of, and you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.